Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Mornings with Joel's CRE podcast. I am excited as always to have you with us today. And we have a special guest that we haven't had on the show before, Adeola Adejobi. How are you doing today? You're looking
I'm
great.
well. How are you?
Well, fantastic, fantastic. We're really excited to have you here on the show. And I was joking with you offline. When I heard your first name, obviously I've known you for a few years now, but I was like, man, is that Eddie Murphy's mom from Coming to America? It's like the same name there. So, but all good. But I know your roots go back to Africa anyway, right?
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's do this. Let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about your background. Obviously, we've met through some fantastic things you're doing with the DCRE conference. We'll get to that in a minute, so don't jump off there. But were you actually born here, or did you immigrate over
Yeah, that's a great
from Africa?
question. So my
Okay,
parents came to the U.S. In the 80s. I'm
okay.
from Oakland, California.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I'm
I
a
didn't know
Cali
that.
girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I was born in America.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. Cali girl.
Indeed. Oakland, California.
Oakland, California
Different,
girl.
there's different
Yeah.
categories.
That's true. That's true. There's different parts of California, without a doubt, and totally different. Okay, so you went here, and then you started your schooling and everything. And I noticed one thing in your background because you're an attorney now, but part of your education was actually in China. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So from Oakland, I went to Spelman for undergrad, then I went to Cornell Law School, and then I did an exchange program in China at University of Beida, which is essentially their it's like the Yale of China. So it
Okay.
was a great opportunity and experience to be submerged in someone else's culture. And so, I had an amazing time. It was a blessing because I definitely went at the right time. It
Yeah.
was right after the Olympics
Hmm.
in 2008. So the country had invested a lot in infrastructure and development. So, the trains were fast, they had their big, uh,
Hmm.
the place where they're hosting all the events and things like that. And they were very welcoming to tourists, which I still think that they are generally, but it was an amazing time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Actually, one of our interns is from Beijing. So yeah, it's quite the relationship. But that's interesting. Why did you pick China? Was it yeah, go ahead. I'll let you
Yeah,
answer.
I think, for China, I think for me, as someone who my background is political science with a minor in comparative women's studies, I think that, and when I was in law school, I got a specialization in international legal affairs. And so
Okay.
Cornell Law School is a great law school for those who have some sort of international interest and want to kind of delve deeper into that. So I wanted to have an opportunity to understand how they are just setting up their economy
Hmm.
and how are they looking at infrastructure, how are they looking at development, because their economic rise was very aggressive. Not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but it takes decades
Hmm.
for countries to be able to start to create a middle class, and they did there swiftly. I mean, I
Yeah.
do think as a government they have certain types of controls that other governments do not have at
Yeah.
their whim,
Yeah.
and they also have billions of people that they can also utilize. So it was very interesting to just understand more about how they are as a people. I think,
Hmm.
interestingly enough, they are very similar to Nigerians in terms of cultures. I'm Yoruba specifically, so let me give that caveat because
Okay.
Nigeria has like 250 ethnicities. But
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of it being connected to my ethnicity, I think that they are very uh, their culture is more like a geriocracy, which is basically
Hmm.
meaning that the highest ranking people are the oldest. And so the way that they do that also kind of folds into what their law looks like and how
Okay.
that is shaped. And I think in all countries worldwide, culture, it gets folded into the law or memorialized into
Hmm.
the law and how people work in the dynamic. And so, in their culture, families live together and multi-generational, they have multi-generational living. And
Hmm.
a lot of places in Africa and Nigeria specifically also do the same thing. So it was
Hmm.
just very interesting to see that it was interesting to see their education. They have a very, 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 very strong focus on education. And Nigerians, Yoruba people, Igbo people have the same as
Mhm.
well. So it was just interesting to see how that was able to manifest. And then also it was interesting being, one of a few, if you will, Black people in the country. So
Yeah.
it was just interesting to look out and see like everybody looks the same. Now, I won't lie, a lot of people were taller than I expected,
Mhm.
but I stuck out, and that didn't matter to me. It was very interesting to connect with children and adults who were just curious because they literally have never interacted with a Black person before. Many people haven't
Mhm.
seen us, right? So, and you could tell that people's curiosity was coming from a genuine place. And
Right.
so I loved it there. I actually thought that I was going to go back and maybe
Mm.
live there for a few years, but I ended up, graduated and going to a law firm. So
Understood. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I got to ask you this because I remember my first time to China. There were actually people like following us around. It was like,
Mhm.
you got this celebrity kind of status, and it's changed over the years with TV and everything. But back years ago, it was really like that, and they would want to touch your hair and everything. Did you have anything with
I
that?
did. I did. I took a lot of pictures with people. They love the peace sign. I too
Yeah,
love the peace sign.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was interesting. You did have, I had braids.
Hmm.
So that was obviously very unique to them.
Yeah, yeah.
And you did have people kind of like touching on you and stuff like that. But again, I didn't see it as um my intuition was telling me that it wasn't malicious. It was just
Right,
curious.
right,
They were
right.
asking in Chinese, like, oh, how do you do that with your hair?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
asking Mandarin, how do you do that with your hair? And so it was fascinating. And I had a couple of exchange buddies, like folks who wanted to learn English and I wanted to learn Mandarin. And so we would meet up on campus and we would,
Okay.
converse and stuff like that. That's way before technology had some of these
Yeah.
programs out there. I think only Rosetta Stone existed at that time. It was great. It was great.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. So are you fluent in Chinese?
I am not.
No.
I am not. But I will say I am better at, I would say like, I will want to say I'm like beginner plus survival, if that's the category, because
Mhm.
you can't survive speaking English, which is actually what I wanted. I wanted to be immersed in someone else's culture. And I think what's
Sure.
helpful is with immersion, you use those words very, very frequently. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because like even in New York, which is very diverse, when I hear people speaking Mandarin, I can't pick up everything, but certain words, I'm like, oh, okay, they're talking about something around this. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and it's funny because I took about 6 years of Spanish in the US, and my Mandarin is better than my Spanish
Ah, because you were immersed in the culture,
because you're
probably.
immersed and you have to survive. And
Yeah.
my chopsticks, they were like, oh, there isn't a technique. You just kind of use them. And guess what? When you're hungry, those
You learn
chopsticks
how to
start
use
working.
them. Yeah, yeah.
Now I pride myself on being able to pick up little grains of rice, one
Right,
grain of
right.
rice with my chopsticks.
Wow, that's pretty good. I struggled with that at first because I was like, how do they do this? And then you realize that the rice is generally stickier over in China, as opposed to the loose grains. But yeah, if you got that skill, congratulations. I
Thank you.
think I could do like a pea. But anyway, that's good. Can you tell the difference between Mandarin and Cantonese?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It doesn't even, it's funny because when you study it, it's like it doesn't even sound the same.
Uh-huh.
Because it's just not the same language. But I also think what was interesting was being there, China is a huge, massive country. And so
Sure.
very similar to the US, people have what we would call accents.
Mm,
So you hear a word one way, you study it one way, and then you're out and about, and you might be. And I mean, we have something called National Holiday, which is basically
yeah.
like a week where people go and visit their families. And so we traveled all across China, and it was interesting to kind of like be like, "What did you say?" Because I feel like you're saying this,
Mhm.
but the accent sounds very different. And it happens in the US all the time. You can
Yeah,
be in
yeah.
California and not understand something that someone from Mississippi is saying, and they're literally speaking the same language. So it was just
Mhm.
interesting to also experience that in a different country as well.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Now that's something that I never even thought of. So that's impressive. So thank you for sharing that. But I really appreciate you giving us that backstory because, I think in America we often think that we're some kind of separate apart group of people.
Mhm.
And people are unique and still the same in so many different parts of the world. You just got to get out and travel and
Right.
see other parts of the world, and you realize that we're much more alike than we are apart. So I appreciate that. I would have never put China and Nigeria together with
Yeah,
that commonality. That's really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, there are a lot of commonalities there.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. So, why'd you go into law as of all things? Because you got this desire for real estate, but then you're also in law. I mean, how did all that come together?
That's a great question. I kind of feel like I've always had a passion for helping my community.
Okay.
So my background is, well, my dad was always very into politics. So we are a political family, I would say, in the sense that we
Okay.
talk politics. My dad understands like he global politics. He can tell you what's
Okay.
happening in Russia, what's happening in
Mm,
China, what's happening. So that was kind of like the talk that we had in our house a lot. And I was always passionate about giving back and
mm,
helping my people, if you will. And so I kind of naturally fell into or leadership roles, if you will. So,
mhm.
like in high school, I was president of BSU. I was president of my dorm at Spelman. I was SGA president. I was president at when I went to Cornell, and I
Okay.
was of the Black law students. And so, I think that having a passion to help people and help your community, it manifests itself in different ways. And so I think when you have a perspective that politics is important, because to me, I see it as like the invisible hand
Hmm.
that is controlling everything that you do, which is, you have free will not to stop at a red light, but you're
Yeah.
likely going to stop because the law says so, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think that I felt like the law was very important because it is what allows society to keep order in order for the people to be able to have opportunity. Because when government is in disarray, there are no winners really.
Yeah.
And if there are some, they're very few. You're basically in an oligarchy. So I think
Sure.
to protect democracy, it's actually very important that we have the right people in legal roles.
Hmm.
And so with real estate, that passion also came about with me growing up in Oakland, California, and just not understanding, but being perceptive about like, why does my neighborhood look different than somebody else's neighborhood when
Mm.
you go to the fancy mall, right? Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
are those houses bigger?
Yeah.
Why are their roads smoother?
Hmm.
And I was introduced to real estate very early by my mom, actually,
Okay.
because Nigerians love school. And so my parents were very big on, they don't like idle children. And so
That's one way to
everybody
put it.
has to do something. So
Right.
one summer, my mom was like, well, I'll say this: Nigerians are infamous for figuring out how to put their kids in an educational program or something of the like. So
Hmm.
my mom literally on a Saturday morning used to be like, y'all got 1 hour to eat. We going to the library. And
Okay.
so she would drop us off at the library and say, what time does the library close? 5 o'clock. I'll be back at 5.
Wow. Oh man.
Yeah, she used to round us up. Okay.
Oh.
But our family enjoys reading. Our family enjoys
Wow.
reading. So it was great. And it's funny because I think, the dynamic, especially in like Nigerian households, is like Nigerians know how to put their kids to work. So for us, we're like, oh, we could be at home doing chores or we could read this book. And then let's read this book.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I think that was
yeah.
very helpful. And we have to provide reports too. So
Oh,
my
wow.
mom was actually interested in real estate, but she was working so much that she didn't have an opportunity to kind of read it. So it was my job. So I would read it and then I would tell her what I read. And
Okay.
so what was interesting is like with that kind of dynamic, it's obviously going to stick in your mind
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
you don't get to just read it passively and maybe
Right.
but when you know that you actually have to report back, you're
Yeah.
thinking at a minimum, these are the 3 to 5 points that I actually need to remember because
Yeah.
my mom's going to be mad if I don't remember anything I'm reading. She's like, I didn't come all the way to this country for you not
Right.
to be able to know how to read. So
That's
yeah,
it.
so I think it started there, and then it just mixed in. I mean, when I went to undergrad, I started as a bio major. I thought I was going to be a doctor because Nigerian
Okay.
parents were like, I didn't come to this country for you to be anything other than a lawyer, doctor, or engineer.
Right.
And so I switched from bio to poli sci, and I think also in college, and I think what's helpful about Spelman, I think that I had a wonderful experience there, and I think when you're in college and you're kind of in those coming to age moments, it's very different than high school, because in high school, you pick something, but it's, to be honest, it's just not that hard. And because there's structure kind of built into your life. I feel like in undergrad, it literally feels like open space. You're like, wow, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go to class. We used to literally order cookies at like 3 a.m. because we could. We're like, our parents aren't here. We can do what we want to do.
Do whatever I want to do.
But then the consequences, after you gain, 20 pounds, you understand you might not want to do that. But going back to this point, I think it's really about what I realized was, as a poli-sci major, I really, really, really love the subject matter, and nothing could really pull me away from it. Whereas when I was a bio major, I'm like, this is hard, this is boring. Whereas like in poli-sci, I was really immersed in it. I really did enjoy it, and I really did want to learn more. So like, I know all my professors know me, and then you're able to connect with your colleagues in a way where now you're able to have, I would say, a deeper and more critical analysis of the subject matter amongst people that also have that same passion. So you went from, level 1 to level 10, and now everybody at levels 10 is talking about like, does this form of democracy really work? Do these specific rules really work? And then you get to kind of unwind and debate. And we were always debating our friends over at Morehouse.
Okay. Right.
Different points. And we literally thought we were going to take over the world. We thought we were going to lead the world in college, because we were just excited about having the opportunity to have free thought and being out on the Strip. It's an area that connects Spelman, Morehouse, Clark, Morris Brown, and ITC. And you're out there 2 a.m. debating politics. Right, like that lets you know how passionate, and it wasn't just the poli-sci people. We had our own little corner, and guess what? The bio people, they had their folks, the math folks, the people in engineering, and so it was just a great environment. And I also think, because I went to Spelman, which is HBCU, that the environment itself fostered something that allows you to become like yourself, what I call like 2.0. So now you're yourself to the max, because you're like a tree or a plant or a seed planted in ground that's like super fertile and wants you to succeed. So everyone around you wants you to succeed. And so you have professors, you have administration, you have your peers, you have people who are under you, you have people who are, who are more senior than you. And everyone is kind of like going towards that same goal. And so it's like you're on a superstar team with people, and everybody's trying to get better together. And so I feel like that definitely allows folks to be able to reach their highest potential.
Gotcha. No, that's tremendous, and I'm glad you colored it that way. And I can see with your gregarious personality how you were like the head of everything. So, but it's all good. It's all good, because you've kind of carried that forward into some of the things that you're doing right now. So let's do this. We're going to take a 20-second commercial break.
Impact Air 99. We asked real people try the Impact Air 99.
Breathable, light, but protective.
Feels very comfortable wearing it. It looks cooler.
It's almost surprising how much air you can get in.
Engineered with 6 layers of nanoscreen technology that blocks over 99% of viruses and bacteria, while allowing you to breathe freely and speak clearly.
My glasses are not fogging up.
I could wear this all day.
Thank you. We're back here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We're speaking to Adeola Adejobi. If I got that right. And happy to have you here with us. A very, very interesting conversation, and happy you were able to share all your background there. So you've done all these things. Spelman was great. You're getting older now. You decide, okay, well, now I got to go into the workforce. And you started working, you started pursuing your passion in law, but you didn't just stop with that. You started these other organizations that kind of, like you said, help others succeed, kind of in a sandbox, if you will, of having multiple people working together to try to achieve these different things. And I know one of the conferences, I don't know much about it, so I'm going to ask you to share with me. And when I give you the name, you'll know why I don't know much about it. But it's the Women of Color Capital Conference. And you talk about venture capital and some things. So tell us briefly just a little bit about that, what that's all about, and how people might be interested in joining.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a great segue. I think just to kind of transition it a little bit so folks know how we
Sure.
got here. So essentially, what I guess what happened was that I wanted to practice as a real estate attorney. The market was down, and then from there, I realized as a young, recent law graduate that, oh, wait a minute, this kind of industry over here can affect me over here, right? Because
Mhm.
when we were growing up, we were told like being a lawyer is like a very secure area, to kind of go in.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
I launched Avant Network, and through that, I was hosting a series of initiatives already. And so over time,
Okay.
I found that when you are a connector of people, an ecosystem builder, you are focused on the group advancing, so your eyes are open and you're paying attention. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that I noticed at the time, I had two groups. I had a group called WEC and another one called MEC, and it was for the Women's Empowerment Collective, and we had a Men's Empowerment Collective too.
Okay.
And what was interesting, and I ran both groups. So
Okay.
what I thought was interesting was that the women were focused on relationships and relationship building, and the
Mhm.
men were focused on the money, just straight out the gate. To the point
Yeah.
where I'm like, because the guys approached me like, oh, we need this too, because I launched the women's first, and they're like, the men need. So I was like, oh, I'm not a guy. I didn't know that you guys
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
but I'm more than happy to do it. So I'm in the meetings, and the guys are like, and I'm like, well, what do you want to talk about? They're like, we want to talk about money. And I'm like, okay, and what else? He's like, and that's it. I was like, okay,
And
well,
that's it.
that works. So, so I put that together, and they just got straight to it, like every single meeting. And it was interesting because I'm in the meetings with the women, and I'm and here's the thing, at the time, like, we're still relatively young, and I'm like, but the women actually have more money. The women have more money, but they also have more money because they save. But I as someone I've been reading books on investing in business since I was in college. So one thing I know is that saving does not beat the market. So I'm like, well, but the guys are going to end up with more money because they're willing to actually put that money at risk. And so
Yeah.
then I had to kind of take a step back and figure out, well, why is one group able to do it and the other is not? And what I found was that the challenge for women is that there are a lot more demands and expectations on their time. So
Okay.
men can go to work and go home, and that's great. And I'm not saying that that's all men do, because there's guys who do all kinds of things, community service, everything. But in the women's ecosystem, especially a Black woman's ecosystem, there is a higher expectation of participating in different ways, which is like, you are expected to do, community service. You're hosting, it's a birthday party for someone. If you have kids, you have all of those obligations. And if you have kids and you're married, then you have, the wife obligations. You have the daughter-in-law expectations. If you're a part of a sorority, you have those. And I'm Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay. All right.
And so you have, those, you have those meetings and those expectations and those fundraisers. If you're a part of, Jack and Jill or other things, like, so there's all of these things that are kind of tying up your time that don't give you any time for you to actually focus on your own future. And so what I wanted to do there was basically create one day that ended up being like 2 days where women can come together and just focus on that. Because I'm like, the only way that they're going to be able to do it is they need to schedule it and plan it out. And so what I wanted to do was create a system, an area where people can connect and learn at different levels. So we had things for people who were just getting their finances together, or folks who wanted to start business or were looking for business funding and capital, something for folks who wanted to be investing and become investors, as well as, venture capital. And I think a part of that, even for me, was because I was looking to launch DCRE first, while these other groups were happening. And I was, and for both groups, I was like approaching businesses, hey, these large law firms, financial services firms, banks, and saying, hey, like, we have this initiative, and this is, pre George Floyd. Many of them were not interested, to the point where I've had some companies say, especially about women of color and capital, like, oh, we don't think that there's a market for this. And I'm like, you don't think there's a market for Black women wanting to make more money? Like,
like, really?
Everybody that I know, has interest. So essentially what happened was I was like, why is there no central place for me to get all the information? And so that was the
You
impetus.
had to create it.
Exactly. So, but I was also focused on DCRE because that's what I also wanted to do. Right. And so I hosted I hosted Women of Color and Capital first in, I believe, May, sometime like end of May 2019. And then I ended up hosting DCRE 6 weeks later. How I did it, I don't know.
That's a lot in 6 weeks.
Right.
Yeah,
and then both of those events just like took off as marquee events. And so both events were sold out. Both events had, record attendance. And so we had to validate. And it's something that I call in our market, I call it triple validation, really, which is there's an expectation for Black women led businesses, especially, to have to over validate what they're seeing, the opportunity they see in the market, because they don't just get funding off of ideas. And so what it essentially is, you go to a company, you have this great initiative, they're like, okay, well, you have to come with us with results, right? Which means that your idea is not getting funded, your output and your execution. And then you also have to execute at the level that they would want to see to come in. So in the sense that it's not like, oh, it's one small initiative and, next year you'll partner with us and you'll get bigger. No, they already want you to perform at bigger.
Yeah. They want you to get it off the ground.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's actually more than get it off the ground. It's because, we don't have the fire festival opportunities where you can go to an investor and get $6 million and have never done anything before. I mean, at this point, for my group Avant Network, at this point, I probably hosted at least 300 events. Because we were hosting monthly networking and I was hosting them all. We're hosting monthly networking events on top of the men's group, which is separate, on top of the women's group, which is separate, on top of the fact that we hosted the largest Black tech meetup at South by Southwest, and we still couldn't get money for that. We had a bunch of initiatives, coming at one time. And so I'm like, well, technically we're already validated because we can show that we can do it because we've already been doing it. Right. So I would say that's step one of the validation. And then step two of the validation is like, well, that was nice. You did it once or twice, but is it sustainable? Is it something that can continue? Is it something that could be at a certain level? So now you have to produce at a higher level without the same amount of funding. And then even after that, they might say, oh, well, we'll just come and see. We just want to, we'll buy a couple tickets and see. And they want to see. And then they may never actually invest in the thing. And so it's kind of like you have to continue to validate and over validate before you get the type of support that similarly situated companies or organizations get. And a lot of times you're still not going to get that level of funding either.
Yeah. Boy, so it's just one battle after another every day. You're just pushing that boulder up the hill. Trying to get there.
It's funny because I was describing it that way to someone this week as well. And so I think, depending on the season that you're in, I mean, I know for us, I decided that like, look, I can't carry everything on my back. And the way I was describing it is like, it's a boulder, you're pushing it up the hill, but it's not like the hill is smooth. It's a jagged hill. And so certain times you have to expend more energy to get it over that hump and you're still going up. And there's a point where you have to determine either I have to let this ball drop or it's going to crush me.
Oh, it's going to crush you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what I decided to do was I was like, hey, I need to figure out a way I still want to run this and I'm still passionate about being able to do all of this work. After all, we were in the market doing it before DEI was a word that people knew nationwide or worldwide. My background and my first role in public service and diversity was in 2006. So I have been in this space for a significant amount of time. And so what I found was that, I decided to just figure out more efficient ways to do it. And I understand that people generally want more touch points, but it's harder to have more touch points if you don't have enough funding for those operations.
Yeah. So the battle continues. But even with all that adversity, we'll call it, you've been able to accomplish a lot. I mean, I had no idea you had hosted so many events in the tech, and I mean that's really impressive from that standpoint. So what exactly is the objective of the Women of Color and Capital in the long run? What would you like to see that for you to be able to sit back and say, okay, it's done. I accomplished exactly what I set out to accomplish.
Yeah, I think for that platform, it's really about connecting women with capital and opportunities and helping them elevate. What I found was when we hosted, I mean, we've hosted events in DC, Atlanta, in Dallas, and in some other markets as well, that some women who want to be focused on their finances, they just don't even have community. They don't have somebody that they can talk to about like, hey, I'm trying to get this together. They don't have an accountability part. I mean, and that was very shocking to me because because my friends are already. So it was interesting to put something that out like that out in the market and realize there was such a need for it. And also, you know, honestly, just doing it without the frills too. I think when women in finances became something very popular, you have people who just do it for show. They're not doing it to actually make an impact. And sometimes that impact is not, there's not going to be glitz and glamour. I'm like, are you coming to the event to get content or are you coming here to take pictures? Because it's not necessarily going to work both ways. And that's not in any shade. Like, I think for some people, they get kind of in that category because they don't know where to start. And I think for some of these folks that are hosting these type of events, they are also for show, whether they're large or small organizations. I mean, we've had organizations that are finance-based, companies that are finance-based that we pitched and said, hey, your company doesn't have something like this. We would love to partner with you on it. They tell us, oh, we're going in a different direction. We don't want to do that. And then 6 months later, your idea is on their platform. But guess what? They don't have any output because they weren't doing it for output. They were doing it for market share, which is very different. So for me, I actually care about our audience getting more opportunities and getting more capital and getting more money because a part of the stress that Black women face is that they're already underpaid. So we were one of the first organizations hosting sessions on how to negotiate your salary. And people were able to negotiate their salary or how to negotiate your offer, because that's just something that you're not taught these things in school. And most people don't learn them in their family because in certain industries do that a certain way. So if I'm a lawyer, I can't necessarily help somebody in finance do it because it's a different industry and how to approach it. Exactly. So for me, that's really what it is about. And so right now we're under what I would call a restructure, if you will, because a lot of the funding that was out there that allowed us to expand no longer exists, right? Those DEI platforms are done. Those people were fired, et cetera. But my thing is, we started without the funding. We started, I mean, we did it because I wanted to do it.
Right.
My connection,
bootstrap it and get back at it.
My connections, my resources, my money, my time, and we still made it happen. And so as we move over into what that next phase looks like, we are going to keep moving forward, but it's not going to look exactly the same.
Okay. I understand that. I do want to mention one thing and kind of go back to something that you said, which I think is really important, because at the end of the day, this is about business, right? And being able to grow your business, grow access to capital and everything else. Just give us a blurb on why you think accountability is important, because you mentioned that, you gave the example of people in Dallas might not have accountability partners. And I know it wasn't Dallas specific, but why do you think that's so important for all of us really to have accountability partners in order to grow?
I think accountability partners are important. One, because I see them really more as motivators. I don't see the accountability partner as a negative, like you did something wrong, you need to be held accountable. I think it's more so because at the end of the day, you have to be accountable to yourself. Right. But if you've ever had an accountability partner and you're like, hey, we meet once a month or we meet twice a month or whatever, guess what? Like many people might be like, oh, I got to meet this partner in 2 days and I can't get on this phone and say I did nothing. Right. So it's just helpful. It's just helpful to be like, you know what, I actually need to get on these goals, because I believe that success it doesn't just pop out of thin air. Success is just discipline and action over time, consistently. And so over the course of the year, if you're meeting with someone, once to however many times a month, at the end of the year, you're going to be further along with your goal. But I also think it's helpful because it helps you put a slot in your mind about these specific goals that you said that you wanted to accomplish. And you're like, hey, I only got an hour today, but I'm going to do it. Because if not, you just get caught up in life. Like as an adult, hell, even as a child, I would say you can be very busy. You know, you have school, or you have work, you have all these other obligations. You got to cook, you got to clean, you got to make sure your parents are good, you got to make sure your kids are good. And so you don't really make time for things like this because you're just so bogged down in the hustle and bustle of things, which is why I think having an accountability partner is great, because when that reminder goes off the day before, you're like, oh, let me get at it. Let me at least do 30 minutes or something, so I'm not coming to this call without having anything done. And the accountability partners that I've had, we're never like, you didn't do what you would say you would do. Like we never do that. It's really more so like, if you come to the table and you're like, oh, I didn't get to, you know, it's really more people encouraging you, like, look, don't worry. Next time you're going to get it. You were supposed to do this one thing. So next time you're going to come back and you're going to have 2 things done. We're going to keep it pushing. And that's how I work. Yeah. Well, no, that's really what it's all about. And I mentioned that because a lot of people, they want to go into the entrepreneurial side of things. And, you know, the mindset is, I won't have this boss telling me I can't go on vacation. I won't have this boss and I can sleep till 12. And I mean, it's right. You're shaking your head. You get the point. You cannot do that. Right. And if you don't have, because right now your job holds you accountable, right? It's like they expect you to be there at a certain time and they expect you to do certain things. And you have to set that up for yourself if you're going to be successful. So that accountability is extremely important. And like you said, it's not about beating somebody over the head. It's about helping them, you know, reach their own goals. And to your point, it's also leadership by example, because if you're going to be a CEO, your employees are going to behave like you. For the most part, not specific, but they're going to notice if this person isn't doing any work, why am I doing work? Right. You are going to be the person who sets the ethos of what your organization is, and your team is going to be looking to you for leadership. And so you also have to determine what type of leader you want to be. You have the things you have to do as a CEO, and then you also have people that you're managing as well, and both either within or external to your organization as well. Yeah, exactly. You got to keep that tight. So very, very good. We're a little early right now, but I'm going to go ahead and take our break right now, our 20-second, because after that, I want to get into DRCE. And I know you're going to go once we start talking about that. So I won't be able to squeeze that into 2 minutes. So we're going to take our quick commercial break right here, and we will be right back on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Stay tuned.
Step into the future with EcoCrypt, a platform unifying decentralized finance with real-world utility, where value flows freely. From gaming achievements to real-world assets, everything can be tokenized, fractional, and accessible in one trusted ecosystem. For gamers, investors, and global communities, EcoCrypt is breaking down barriers and democratizing finance. Join the revolution. Visit ecocryptusa.com today.
We're back here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Excited to have you with us again. And we're here with Adeola. And Adeola, so everything you were saying has been fantastic. We talked about the reason for accountability and what you've been doing with these different trade groups, if you will, that you've been putting together and building these organizations. And I guess it would probably be safe to say your flagship right now is probably the Diversity in Commercial Real Estate Conference. Is that safe to say?
That is correct.
What's that all about? Because that's how we met, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So DCRE had launched that technically I actually launched it in 2018, but we did the large conference in 2019. And essentially it is a conference where folks connect from all over the country, actually all over the globe, because we have people come internationally as well to participate in the conference. And we talk about current trends, people who are looking for job opportunities, people who are looking for capital, business partners. And we've been really successful at helping people connect with one another. And so when I launched it, what I found was there were a lot of up and coming emerging developers at the time, or folks who were in the space or trying to get into the space and transition into the space. And I had already had work experience, but couldn't necessarily figure out how to get into commercial real estate. Sure. And so I launched a conference, and we ended up being the largest in the country.
Wow.
And
Wow.
again, we approached many commercial real estate firms and we're like, hey, we're doing this initiative. And they didn't think that they weren't interested. They didn't think that there was a need for it in the market. But the results said otherwise. And so what we do is we focus on different areas of commercial real estate. And bring everybody together, because once you're in your specific area, a lot of times you're kind of, I don't want to say you're locked in, but you're really more dedicated to the area of the industry that you're in. So like my background is affordable housing. So I go to the affordable housing conferences, I go to those meetings and events and things like that, but I'm not in hotels. I'm not in private equity. I'm not in retail. I'm not in industrial. Right. I'm not in capital markets, right? And all of those different industries have their own kind of pipeline of activities that people do consistently. And so for me, I wanted there to be an opportunity for all of us to be able to get together, because there is connectivity a lot of times in what we're doing. And also for, just based off of the history of America, there aren't, Black people were intentionally kept out of real estate. And so we are playing a serious game of catch up here. And you may be one of a handful of people in your city or state that does what you do. And so it definitely created a great opportunity for people to come together and build out their network and build out their relationships. And so we've had several people work together on deals. I've done some, hard hat tours of people who met at the conference and became business partners. We've had somebody come to the conference and he got his full capital stack, debt and equity. He was able to do a $12 million deal. And the thing about it was, he was like, one of the partners he had already knew and couldn't actually connect with them in a real way. And so the conference created multiple ways for that person to build relationships and take things back to the table, maybe pick up on some feedback and to be able to connect. But what I will say is, what I really do love about this conference is the ethos that we have created, which is people want to work together. People want to do deals. People want to transact. People want to help people. So folks are emailing me all the time. We have people who came to the one conference and got a job. One conference got a deal, got a business partner. And so that really is the energy that we need in this business and that we need amongst ourselves as well. So I'm really honored, I would say, to be the person who's like leading the charge in this space. But the reality is it's also a reflection of the people that come to this conference as well.
Yeah. No, that's very important. It's interesting because it's almost how this podcast got started. I was actually the capital markets instructor at REAP. And, people were like, well, I want to connect and I want to talk. And at first it was like, well, you can look over my shoulder in our staff meetings and you kind of see how we put deals together. But to your point, there were people who were like, well, I don't want to do capital markets, right? I want to do leasing. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it wasn't really our spot. So we actually decided, because at first I was like, well, I'll tell you who to call to get that connection, but it's not as efficient. So we decided to do the show so people can meet these folks and kind of see what it's all about. So appreciate that, because that's we kind of have the same mindset. How do we bring people together in order to make it happen? I do want to pick up on one thing though that I think is very important, and your conference is called Diversity in Commercial Real Estate, right?
Indeed.
There's a belief system out here, especially in the last couple of years, that there's no need for diversity and everybody's fine and everything is hunky-dory and all playing fields are equal. Why do you think that the fact that you still even have this name of diversity in commercial real estate is so very important? Do you think diversity is still needed? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will say this. For one, I stand on business and I stand on what I believe in. And people can say what they want, but the data is the data. Currently, there are about 112,000 development companies nationwide in the US, and only 1,000 of them have diverse founders.
Out of 112.
Out of 112,000, 1,000 have diverse founders.
So do the math.
So, and guess what? And maybe for a particular population, that is enough diversity for them. And that's great. But that's not enough diversity for me.
Yeah, there you
go.
So
I'm willing to pull my resources together
Yeah.
in order to create opportunities, because that's how we're taught at Spelman.
Okay.
We're
All
taught
right.
to raise up the mantle of leadership and get it done and make sure that we're not just advancing ourselves, but also advancing our communities. Because the reality is this, I'm not the first person in the business. I'm not. However, I'm one of the few people, and not saying that there weren't others before me, because there were, but I'm one of the few people, I'm amongst them, one of the few people who are willing to come together and share resources, contacts, community, because real estate, it's a networking business.
Right.
You have to know what you know very well, but then you also need a network. If you don't have a network, you don't have business. Right. And so that's a part of why we built what we built. Currently in America, there is a 7 million unit shortage of affordable housing.
Wow.
So all I see is one, people need to be housed, and two, there's opportunity. And that is opportunity that we also need to be able to step into, and not just as developers, as service providers, as folks providing capital. There's a lot of firms that, had the opportunity to launch, right, post George Floyd and things like that. But now that there's been a crawlback of that, if you will, it's even more important now that a community like this exists. Because the reality is, I love ULI. ULI's out there, other organizations out there, they've been out there hundreds of years. The question is, did that change our position? Because if it did, I wouldn't be doing this work.
Right.
I'm happy to attend. And here's the thing, I go to those events too.
Yeah.
But it's one thing for me to go to somebody else's to eat, which is fine. It's another thing for me to have a feast in my own home with my own people, with my own friends, And so, and again, I'll say this too, we are explicitly inclusive, right? And so when we're talking about diversity, we're not necessarily just talking about race. The conference is open to everyone. The conference is literally open to everyone. However, we do make sure that we focus on certain topics, which quite frankly, it's a diversity of topics, actually, that we focus on more. But we also want to make sure that we highlight folks in our community who have been doing this work for a long time, who have otherwise not been highlighted in these spaces. Right. You will find that there have been people in commercial real estate who were one of one for 10, 25 years. You never even heard of them. Yeah, of course you haven't heard of them, because they don't have the capacity to do the job and then come out and talking to you. Right. And even with the profile of our conference, like our conference is not for beginners. I want to make that clear. Our conference is for people who are, I wouldn't necessarily say that you're fully established, but I would say the average age for our conference attendee is 40 and up.
Really?
In terms of, that's like 90% of the audience. Because if you think about it, a lot of people transition in our communities, transition in as a second career. Right. Because a lot of these roles in commercial real estate, they're highly coveted positions, and there's a lot of nepotism in the business. It is what it is, which means that somebody's going to hire their son, their uncle, their nephew, whoever, somebody that's in their network before they hire you, even if you can do the job the same way or better. So what does that mean? That means you need a network. And so if you're serious about building a network, then you might want to network with people who are serious about giving you business and networking with you. And that's not taking away from anyone, because anyone could be willing to give business. So, but you gotta shoot your shot, several times. But if you are shooting over here and it's never going in the basket, then you might want to try a different hoop.
Sure.
Yeah. If the reps are against you.
Let's not talk about the Knicks first, but
after the Knicks.
We're gonna leave that out.
But so.
But no, you really took away the next line of questioning that I was coming at you with, because that is so spot on. The idea that, and I'm not going to mention names, even though I've done this in the past offline, but you look at individuals and you're like, they are no smarter than any of us. But at the same time, it's just level after level of success. But it's because of that network, So you have that. So now the other side of that, which I do want to bring up, I want to just get a quick thought from you on that, is the idea of, well, I got mine, so you figure it out. I figured out how to get mine. I'm the one of one. You need to go figure it out on your own, because I went through the effort. You need to do that. So how do we break that down so that doesn't happen? because there's enough for everybody. There's trillions
Right.
of dollars out there in commercial real estate.
Right. My philosophy is it's not about how do I get a slice of a pie, it's how do I bake more pies.
Hmm.
That's where I'm at with it. How
Yeah.
do we make it so everybody has their own pie?
Hmm.
And so if somebody's mentality is like, oh, I got mine, well, then continue. Then the great thing is then this just isn't the group for you. And because I'm not going to spend my energy trying to convince you to do something that you're already opposed to doing. The reality is you either have it in you or you don't.
Right.
A lot of our speakers, the vast majority of our speakers are the top people in the industry. Our speakers are the A-listers of the industry. You know that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they are giving of their own time to come back to this community and this group of people and to share their knowledge. And guess what? They're also getting value out of it too.
Yeah.
They're connecting with their peers. They're connecting with capital. They're potentially hiring. Some of them have actually hired people. Some people have met new people that they didn't even know existed, and they did business together. And these are folks who have been in the business 20 plus years. So again, I'm one of those things where when we think about community and how that has actually transitioned over time, you need to be thinking about what I can give. If your mentality the entire time is what I can get, as far as I'm concerned, this community is not the community for you. But I would also say it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in this business, because if you're serious about being commercial real estate, this is a lifelong commitment. You are committed to the business. If you want to just make money, you can go and buy a house every 2-3 years and you will have a legacy. But in terms of what this network is about, elevating to the people to the next level of commercial real estate and helping people get to the point where they can sustain and create legacy businesses, you have to have a long network for that. And that is not something that even at one conference, you're going to be able to connect. And so the great thing for us is we have so many people who return year after year after year. They're reconnecting with the people that they know. And then they're also meeting new people. And people tell me this all the time. It is the best conference that they have ever been to. And it's not because it's me. It's because of the type of ethos that we created in this space, which is we obviously, yes, we're here because we have a need, but also how can we help? Because that is the true form of how you actually build your network. And if your network is your network, then this is actually an extension of that. And you have to be willing to reach your hand out and say, hey, I see you need this thing. I see there's this opportunity, and I'm willing to give it to you, even if I don't get anything back. And that's okay. Because look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm gonna meet my maker one day and I'm gonna be able to say I did my job. All the talents that you gave me, I use them to advance the people because I felt like that was the mission that you had for me personally. But for everybody else, I'm not worried about them because what they're doing over there is never going to take away from mine. My harvest will continue to grow. My territory will continue to grow because as I continue to give to people, those people will be able to give to people. And then they're going to say, well, Adeola gave to me first, or Adeola added to what I did. And people have done it for me too. So I feel like that's the type of mentality that we need to have, period. And I think that people often feel like because we live in a capitalistic society that it's a zero-sum game. And I just don't believe that. And I think that our conference, the DCRE conference, has been able to create an ecosystem that shows something completely different than what people have seen to be the norm.
Yeah, yeah. No, very powerful thoughts. And that's really the bottom line. Don't even, I like the way you put that basically is I don't worry about them people. If that's the mindset of I got mine, you go figure it out on your own, then this just isn't the organization for you. So, but that's a good point. I mean, basically everybody has had someone else help them get to that next level. And so why not do the same for the next generation,
Right.
So it's really important. I do appreciate that. Let's spend a couple minutes just real briefly talking about Africa 2030.
Yes.
I know that's something on your radar. I don't know much about it at all, so this is an education for me as well. What's it all about, and what are you trying to achieve, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I love that. So Africa 2030 was actually one of the first initiatives that I launched back in 2014.
Okay.
And so that was focused on getting folks to consider doing business on the continent. And so we talked about a myriad of topics. We actually hosted most of the events in New York City, but we've since hosted in South Africa, in Nigeria, and Ghana. And the goal is thinking about opportunities for us to expand our business services and opportunities to the continent because there's so many opportunities that are there. So we've covered everything from entrepreneurship in Africa, banking, technology, music. We actually had our event in 2015 called Music, Africa's Next Big Export, Then
Okay.
2, 3 years later, it was the next big export. Everybody was talking about Afro beats and stuff like that. And so what we're saying is like, this is an emerging market now. It's been emerging for a long time, but as a developing country and you have a certain skill set, you can use this as an opportunity to make money. Coca-Cola is not only selling Coke in America, they're selling Coke internationally too.
True that,
so when you're thinking about how you're trying to diversify your customer base, your consumer base, your client, we want people to think internationally as well. And so we are going to have some things coming down the line, again, that really focuses on connecting folks who are serious about taking their business to the next level and having an opportunity to connect and learn about doing business in another country. Because guess what? Your product may not have as many competitors in other places. I mean, that's what ends up happening for a lot of US-based companies. They go to other countries and guess what? There aren't a lot of competitors there. So that could be another market. Obviously, you have to figure out product market fit. But I mean, in the same way with Uber and all of these companies, they didn't just say, hey, we're going to be in America. No, they want to be able to expand. And we too should be thinking about that in the same way. So for us, when we think about the type of, delegations that we're going to be taking over to the continent to be able to experience the continent, but not just from a tourism perspective, but like we're talking about, global trade infrastructure. We're talking about real estate. We're talking about real opportunities that folks who are serious can activate, in this market. And I've always been very, very, very passionate about us being able to connect the diaspora as well. And being able to provide a product or service that makes somebody's life better is also a part of that as well.
Yeah, very interesting. Let me ask you about this because that I've been in Africa a few times, and it's an interesting dynamic. Like any country, though, you have to learn the way things are done. Basically with anything like that. But one thing I'm a little curious about, it's always bringing the talent and bringing the capital and all the rest of it over. But there's a lot of money in Africa as well. I mean, Nigeria is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. When you look at it, especially with all they produce over there. Is there situations where the government will say, we'll provide the capital, you bring the expertise and other things over, or how does that generally work? Are they generally looking for us to bring the capital over?
That's a great question. I think it's a broad question for all 54 countries.
Right, because Africa is not a one country, which most people get wrong. Yeah.
Right. I think the question is, what service does the government have or need that you actually provide? Right? Because the reality is, while you're saying that, there are a lot of international companies from China, for example, who are building infrastructure projects in Nigeria, across Africa, and the Caribbean too.
Yeah.
So the question is, do they want to buy what you're selling? But also, from the consumer standpoint too, when you have, populations that are starting to grow, like middle class and stuff like that, they're also just other consumer products too, as well. So I think it is it depends. Kind of answer. I know that sounds more, that's the lawyer.
No, but
it's true.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why, again, this isn't scripted, right? Because as things come to mind, I want to throw it out there at you.
Yeah.
But you're right on a couple of points. Number one, just like a lot of people look at blacks as just a monolith, right? They all act this way, they all think this way, they all this, and that's not true. Same thing with Africa. Everything is just totally different. And like you said, there's 54 different countries with different everything. But I was curious about that because, from time to time, we always get stuff across the desk. We're talking to folks right now about stuff over in Africa, different projects and whatnot. And, it's hard enough to get money here in the States for projects you want to do in the States, right? And so sometimes bringing money over cross seas is a little bit more difficult. But your point about lack of competition is very poignant, because if those companies, like say if they're bringing in the Chinese and providing the capital, then they're really bringing them in for expertise. And so, that's something that can be offered on our scale as well. So maybe it's a deeper conversation for another day.
Yeah.
And I know it's a broad question. I get that.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I think it's something worth considering, as a way to maybe get more companies to get over there and start working without trying to overcome that hurdle of getting people comfortable, the investors getting comfortable with parts of Africa.
Indeed,
So,
yes.
yeah, so it's really interesting. So, all right, well, fantastic. I think this was a great discussion. A lot of energy. It went quick. So,
It
yeah, and we
did.
covered a lot of ground too. What would you like to say in conclusion to our audience with all the things that you got going on?
Yeah,
What would
I
you
would
like
say,
to share?
obviously, thank you first of all for inviting me and thinking of me to
Mhm.
participate in this. I'm really excited about this opportunity. But if you want to learn more about DCRE and what we do, you can go to diversitycrec.com, and we look forward to seeing you at the conference and participating in our community.
All right, well, fantastic. When's the next one?
It is July. It's usually July every year. So it's at the end of July this year, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you always going to be in New York, or are you going to take it elsewhere? Have you decided that yet?
That's a
Being a
great
California
question.
girl.
That's a great question. We haven't yet made that determination. We've hosted it 8 years now, and it's always been in New York. We also launched out our another conference that focuses on community development as well. That's a one-day conference that we host in New York. But I'm definitely not opposed to hosting some things in some other markets as well. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I mean, I think the venue and bringing everybody in to New York is great as well. So it's, obviously that's my home. So
Indeed. And the money's in New York. So
yeah. So you're right there, and you get to do a lot of other things while you're in the city.
right.
That's good stuff. Yeah. But Adeola, it's been fantastic. I'm sure we'll see each other soon in the upcoming weeks. We'll
Indeed.
certainly see each other before the end of the year. So looking forward to that. And, thank you so much for being a guest here on the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
And everyone, we look forward to seeing you next week on another edition of Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye now.
Are you ready to level up in commercial real estate? Join us on Mornings with Joel CRE podcast, where we bring you exclusive interviews with top deal makers, investors, and industry leaders. Sponsors reach a high-value audience of real estate professionals. Guests share your expertise and grow your influence. Don't miss out. Book your spot today.